Pre-flop multiway pot dynamics. Why multiway changes everything. In online pools, multiway pots are not a vibe problem. They are an expected value tax problem. Your equity realization, R, drops fast as more players enter, because more ranges connect with more board textures. Add rake drag, and the threshold for profitable participation rises again. You tighten up or you donate. First, more players, more dominated situations for offsuit hands like King-Jack offsuit. Second, more players, fewer clean C-bets, so speculative opens lose value when you cannot apply pressure. Third, more players, less fold equity, so you must lean into raw equity and nuttiness. Multiway preflop is a structural shift, not a minor adjustment. First, the poker place exploit framework. Second, the exploit. Tighten your VPIP and isolate bigger when callers are sticky. Third, the risk. Over-tightening lets the table realize equity for free and steals your blinds. Fourth, the counter. If they stop overcalling, reopen your steal range and polarize your 3 bets. Family pots. Your default is linear and tight. A family pot is multiple callers with shallow planning and wide ranges. You cannot outplay 5 people with wishful thinking. Your pre-flop solution becomes more linear versus polarized ranges driven. In family pots, default to linear versus polarized ranges as linear. Linear means you keep the hands that win at showdown and remove hands that need folds to print. First, prioritize pocket tens and better, ace-queen suited and better, ace-king, ace-jack suited, king-queen suited. Second, deprioritize king-jack, offsuit, queen-10 offsuit, ace-9 offsuit, 8-7 suited from early seats when callers are guaranteed. Third, small pairs like pocket fours are not auto-includes. Set mining without implied odds is hope poker. Your job is to enter pots with hands that can make top pair with strong kickers, or make nut draws, or make strong overpairs. First, the poker place exploit framework. Second, the exploit, punish wide callers by removing dominated junk, then value bet harder post-flop. Third, the risk, if you only play premiums, you become readable and blinds fight back. Fourth, the counter, add selective suited broadways and suited ace-X when games tighten and folds increase. Position R and the cost of being outnumbered. Position is your multiplier for equity realization. R. Multiway, out of position, your R collapses. In the cutoff and button, you can still participate, but you must expect fewer uncontested pots and fewer profitable bluffs. In the small blind and big blind, you need higher raw equity and clearer post-flop plans. First, in position, you can call slightly wider with hands that flop robust equity, like 8-7 suited versus a single raise. Second, in position versus raise plus callers, you tighten, because multiway, you get squeezed out of realization. Third, out of position, your calling range must be denser, and your 3-bet range must not be capped. Multi-tabling makes this stricter. You do not have bandwidth for thin multi-street lines in low R spots. First, the poker place exploit framework. Second, the exploit, treat out of position multiway calls as exceptions, not defaults. 3-bet or fold more. Third, the risk, 3-betting too much inflates pots with hands that cannot stand heat. Fourth, the counter, if opponents start 4-betting or trapping, tighten your bluff 3-bets and increase flats with strong suited hands in position. Open sizing and isolation, build pots when you are ahead. In loose online pools, opens get called. Your sizing must reflect that. When you expect 1 caller, you can stay closer to standard. When you expect 2 or more, you size up. The goal is simple, force worse hands to pay more and reduce the table's collective equity realization, R. First, versus calling stations behind, open bigger with value. Dense ranges and avoid speculative opens. Second, ISO raise bigger over limps when you hold hands like ace-queen suited, pocket jacks, king-queen suited. Third, do not ISO light with hands like king-jack offsuit when you will still go multi-way. Big sizing with weak hands is not aggression. It is just paying more rake to lose larger pots. First, the poker place exploit framework. Second, the exploit increase sizing for value and isolate limpers with hands that dominate their calling range. Third, the risk oversizing makes your range face up and invites correct folds. Fourth, the counter, if they start folding too much, return to smaller opens and steal wider in late position. 3 bets in multi-way environments, avoid capped ranges. In family pot dynamics, calling a raise with multiple players behind is how you get squeezed and capped. You want your aggressive range to be capped versus uncapped as uncapped. That means strong value and some well-chosen bluffs. Your flatting range, especially out of position, becomes the capped range. Keep it tight to protect yourself. First, value 3 bets, linear heavy, pocket queens and better ace-king, ace-queen suited, pocket jacks depending on positions. Second, selective bluffs with good blockers, ace-5 suited through ace-2 suited, sometimes king-queen suited in position. Third, avoid bluff. 3 bets with poor playability in multi-way like king-jack offsuit out of position. Use blockers and unblockers. Hands like ace-5 suited block strong continues and can barrel on wheel boards. They also retain equity when called. First, the poker place exploit framework. Second, the exploit 3 bet. More for value and cut out capped flats that bleed realization. Third, the risk. If you 3 bet too linear, you get exploited by folds and 4 bets. Fourth, the counter. Add a tight polarized layer with ace-5 suited through ace-2 suited and remove the worst suited junk when opponents start defending correctly. Defense logic, minimum defense frequency is not your North Star multi-way. Heads up, you can lean on minimum defense frequency, MDF, to avoid overfolding. Multi-way, minimum defense frequency, MDF, becomes less relevant because the bettor's fold equity is already lower. Your correct adjustment is to defend tighter, and defend with hands that realize well, not hands that satisfy a formula. First, defend with suited, connected hands that can make strong draws and nutted hands. Second, fold more offsuit broadways that make dominated one pair, like king-jack offsuit. Third, stop calling because pot odds look cute. Multi-way implied reverse odds are real. Tracking software will show it clearly. Your red line in multi-way spots is rarely the core leak. Your showdown losses are. First, the poker place exploit framework. Second, the exploit, overfold pre-flop versus multi-way action. Then value bet relentlessly when you connect strong. Third, the risk, folding too much, lets aggressive regulars print with opens and squeezes. Fourth, the counter, when squeezes rise, trap with strong hands occasionally and increase 4-bet frequency with your top range. Heuristic ranges, quick rules for online execution. You need rules you can execute while multi-tabling. These are profitable defaults in loose environments. They are not static charts. They are adjustments to multi-way reality and rake. First, from under the gun in sticky games, cut the bottom, remove hands like 8-7 suited and weak offsuit broadways. Second, from cutoff and button, open wider but fold more, versus 3 bets when you expect callers behind. Third, from small blind, play more 3 bet or fold. Flatting invites multi-way misery. Fourth, from big blind, defend tighter versus raise plus callers. Keep hands that can make nutty outcomes. When in doubt, remove the hands that win small and lose big. Keep the hands that can win big. First, the poker place. Exploit framework. Second, the exploit simplify. Tighten in early position, 3 bet, more from blinds, and stop donating with dominated one pair. Third, the risk, simplification can become passivity if you stop applying pressure in steal spots. Fourth, the counter, when tables become tighter, open wider late and reintroduce calibrated bluff 3 bets with strong blockers. Scenario box. Hero, hand, 8 of spades, 7 of spades. Flop, king of hearts. 9 of clubs, 4 of spades. Action, cutoff opens, button calls, hero calls in big blind. Flop checks to cutoff, C bets, button calls. You're in a low equity realization, R, spot. You have a backdoor flush and weak backdoor straight potential. Multiway, this is not a float by default. You do not have fold equity versus two ranges, and your hand struggles to improve to a strong value class. Your baseline is fold. If you continue, it must be tied to specific blockers and unblockers logic and turn cards that shift range advantage. Execute the table dynamics plan. Multiway pre-flop is where win rates get protected. The adjustment is tighter, more linear, and more position sensitive. You are not trying to see flops. You are trying to realize equity at a high rate while denying it to the table. That requires disciplined folds, bigger value isolation, and fewer capped calls. First, the poker place exploit framework. Second, the exploit tighten early, isolate bigger with value, and stop calling multiway with dominance problems. Third, the risk, becoming too tight and letting competent opponents steal uncontested. Fourth, the counter, widen steals when tables tighten, and shift 3 bets, back toward polarized versus open folders. Key takeaway, the Poker Place Academy. In pre-flop family pot environments, you win by tightening into linear versus polarized ranges that are linear, protecting equity realization, R, and refusing capped, hope-based calls. Let the pool pay rake to chase. You enter with hands that dominate, then you build pots when you are ahead. Now, let's test your edge. Question 1. According to the article, why does equity realization, R, drop quickly as more players enter the pot? Answer. More ranges connect with more board textures, making it harder to realize equity. Explanation. With extra players, someone hits more often, fold equity drops, and you reach showdown less cleanly, so your realized share of equity declines. Question 2. In family pot environments, what preflop range shape does the article recommend as the default, linear or polarized? Answer. Linear. Explanation. The article says to keep hands that win at showdown and remove hands that need folds to be profitable because multi-way fold equity is low. Question 3. How should your pre-flop approach from the blinds change in multi-way environments, especially out of position? Answer. Treat out-of-position multi-way calls as exceptions and 3-bet or fold more with a denser calling range. Explanation. The article emphasizes that R collapses out-of-position multi-way, so passive flats create capped ranges and poor realization. Question 4. What is the article's main adjustment to open sizing when you expect 2 or more callers? Answer. Size up with value-dense ranges to charge worse hands and reduce the table's equity realization. Explanation. Since opens get called in loose pools, bigger sizing with strong hands forces callers to pay more and makes their realization harder. Question 5. In the scenario, big blind with 8-7 suited on King 9-4, after cutoff C bets and button calls, what baseline action does the article recommend for hero? Answer. Fold. Explanation. The spot is described as low equity realization, with little fold equity versus 2 ranges and no clear path to a strong value hand. Study hard, play smart. That's it for now. I'll see you in the next lesson.